Hey guys, welcome back to Ad Lib Talk, and this is my review for Wonder Woman 1984. When Wonder Woman came out in 2017, critics and fans alike heaped praise upon it. The chemistry between Gal Gadot and Chris Pine was amazing. The great music it had a fantastic soundtrack. The heart-pounding World War I action was to die for. And the overall positivity which emanated from that movie were really all great positive aspects of it, and rightfully praised in my opinion. It did, however, have one main failure, which was its third and final act. The last part of the movie is remembered as a CGI mess, and I feel that today, unfortunately, everyone thinks about that scene when they're talking about Wonder Woman and completely ignore all the great World War I action that we had beforehand. Yes, Patty Jenkins is a great director. I like her as a director. I've liked the movies she's produced. Can she right the wrongs she did in the first Wonder Woman movie? Let's find out in the review that is coming out. But before we start with that, I hope that if you enjoyed this video, you will like it, as that is great help and support for me and for my channel. And also, if you still have not, how is it possible? Please do consider subscribing. Again, that is also another way of supporting me and my channel. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and let's get right into the review. So let me come out and say it. Wonder Woman 1984 does not have the heights that Wonder Woman of 2017 had. It also, however, does not have that horrible ending that I previously also mentioned. So does it sort of balance out? In a way, yes, but I have to come out right away and say it that I did prefer Wonder Woman of 2017 to this second iteration of Wonder Woman. The story and storytelling, let's talk about that. So it's the year 1984, obviously, and sort of Diana Prince has been living quietly amongst humans for decades now, right? It's been around 40 years or so. The movie makes it clear that Diana is doing all she can to keep her sort of abilities and her special powers a secret, right? And maintaining her sort of secrecy and trying not to expose her abilities and destroying cameras, for example. That's shown in one of the very first scenes of this movie. Diana is working in DC's Smithsonian Museum, where she is a cultural anthropologist. A jewelry heist takes place, and this leads to a mysterious sort of artifact coming into possession of this museum. And Diana, together with her colleague Barbara Minerva, who is a very important character in this movie, investigate this artifact. At the beginning, they're like, "What is this artifact? It's not worth much, is it?" And here is where Maxwell Lord enters, my favorite character from this movie, and very soon you'll see why. This sort of TV personality, because Maxwell Lord appears on TV talking about oil, and he seems to have quite a keen interest in the stone, and very soon we start to see why. Now, I won't spoil why, but the very start of the movie you will, find out quite early. Anyways, so this stone has some kind of power, which I won't say, but for this great power, for this great thing that it gives you, it also takes away from you. And eventually this leads us on to this sort of grand adventure with Diana and the surprisingly returning Steve Trevor, acted by the very, very likable Steve Pine. They are hunting after Lord Maxwell and this special artifact. I won't say more, just so that I don't spoil the storyline, but more or less that is what pretty much happens. Now, does it all work? That's the question you must be asking right now, right? And I'll tell you right away, definitely it does not all work. The opening of the movie feels like sort of a very, very pointless, very long scene with an overtly long race sequence, which seems to be just there for the final point made by Diana's trainee. Who basically tells her that truth is the most important thing. So we're pushing on the team of truth. But it feels so weak, so lackluster. I honestly don't know why it is there. The movie starts to get going once we reach the year 1984, and the movie in itself makes use of the setting, the year, very well. So it really hones in on that sort of 1984 theme, the 80s. It's a time of opportunity. It's time to believe you can do better, right? Even just in the costumes and the cars and the buildings and pretty much everything, right? It's a big focus on the setting in this movie. The performances, Maxwell Lord, acted by the very, very, very good Pedro Pascal, is brilliant. I really enjoyed Pedro Pascal's performance, and I think he is the best thing about this movie. He is the antagonist in this movie, right? I think that's quite clear, even if you've seen the trailers. But despite him being an antagonist, he still is quite likable, actually, as a personality, as a character. And I could understand what was going on in his head. He has a child, right? And he wants to prove to his child that he is sort of not a failure. And so he goes into great lengths just to prove to his son that his son can be proud of him. And I won't obviously spoil how it ends, but the way that story ends, the final scene, is very, very, very relatable, very emotional. And I really did enjoy that part of the movie. So Pedro Pascal is very good in this movie, as is obviously, I think, I don't even have to say it, Chris Pine. Chris Pine, whose sort of chemistry with Gal Gadot is very, very good, very likable, and creates some of the best moments also in this movie. There is, for example, one scene on a plane where they're traveling over the fireworks of the 4th of July. And that is a very emotional, very beautiful scene to watch. And Chris Pine's performance really helps with that. Chris Pine takes the role of the sort of fish out of water, which is really good, and I really enjoyed it. He's actually a very funny actor, and Gal Gadot did a decent job with that role in the first movie, but Chris Pine is obviously, in my opinion, leagues ahead of Gal Gadot as a pure sheer acting talent, and that is clear for both him and for Pedro Pascal when compared to the unfortunately I have to say it, but when compared to the two female leads in this movie. We've got Gal Gadot, on the other hand, whose sort of wooden acting does kind of fit for her role of Wonder Woman. She's likable, but really doesn't do much with her character, does she? I mean, she's okay, nothing more, to be honest. There's not really much to say, but she's likable, mind you. She's very likable as a character, so it's not like you're going to come into this movie and hate Wonder Woman, not at all. Just like in the first movie, Wonder Woman is a very, very likable character. On the other hand, we've got Kristen Wiig as Barbara Minerva, who is also fine. She actually does a decent job at humanizing her character, and clearly showing her motives for her sort of many mistakes that she does. But once she starts to turn into the character of Cheetah, it's all downhill from there. And that's not her fault. That's the problem with the CGI and the writing for her character, which was, I believe, very, very weak. So let's now talk and move on to the CGI and the action in Wonder Woman. So when you go to watch a movie like Wonder Woman, you're thinking, oh, it's going to have some amazing action and some great CGI. But as some of you might remember from the first one, the CGI wasn't very good there. And it's unfortunately the same case here again. So in the first Wonder Woman, however, you did have one of the best, in my opinion, action sequences that we've seen in the past few years in the No Man's Land scene. That really was one heck of an emotional scene. Very beautiful shot, very well performed actually by Gal Gadot in that scene. But at the same time, in that movie, you also had one of the worst action sequences, which was Wonder Woman's fight with Ares in the conclusive scene. And in this second outing, it is once more very inconsistent. There isn't anything as bad as the Ares scene, mind you, but we do get kind of close with one scene, and we'll talk about it very soon. So, the CGI quality used in this movie is very weak, in my opinion. I don't know what happened with the budget about that thing, but it seems like they had a very limited budget for CGI. The car chase scene, for example, at one point, Diana with Chris Pine, they are trying to sort of chase after Lord Maxwell, and basically the performances by the two actors is very good in that particular scene, but the CGI used for the cars and for all the action that's going on feels really weak and feels almost dated, which is a problem for a movie like this, right? Because I'm guessing they had pretty decent budget considering how successful the first movie was. Anyway, this is just one moment that I'm talking about, and this can be seen in many, many moments. Another scene is the Diana versus Cheetah fight sequence at the end. The CGI used for Cheetah is awful. Her fur especially looks like something coming out from the Cats movie, right? It was so horrible. And even the way the scene was filmed, it was way too dark. You can barely tell anything that's going on in the scene. And even some of the cinematography in that scene is awful. As you cannot see how they're fighting, sort of. The way it's shot was very weird, and it felt like a pretty useless scene in my opinion. It's just that I'm guessing Patty Jenkins was forced to add in an action sequence at the end because, it's DC and Warner Brothers have to have that final stupid action scene, right? You can't have a DC movie without an action sequence at the end. Anyways, so yeah, this movie is not perfect. I wouldn't even call it a great movie, mind you. It has a lot of problems, and even the writing sometimes seems a little off. There are a lot of extremely cheesy lines said by the characters, which completely seem off. Now, at one point they're talking about truth, and the theme of truth is honed in on so much, and it gets very, very boring, and you're thinking like, what are they talking about? On the other hand, for example, the character of Maxwell Lord was very well written, in my opinion. There was one point at the very end where I thought they were going to go all crazy, but so that part was a little weak. That was sort of part of the conclusive ending. But then his character again takes a turn to the better, and sort of his final scene with his son, I won't spoil anything more than that, is very, very good, very emotional, and I really did enjoy it. So I enjoyed the writing for Maxwell Lord, and I enjoyed also Diana's writing and sort of how she started to become a little weaker at some point. But overall, even some of the writing was rather inconsistent here, and sometimes did tend to get a little too weak for my liking. But at the end of the day, when you go to watch a superhero movie, the most important thing, in my opinion, is if you had fun or not. Now, this is no Apocalypse Now, but I'll be honest, I still did enjoy my time watching it. Now, this could be because I haven't watched a blockbuster in quite a while, so that could have played an element in here. But I'm actually quite glad I went to watch it. I really did enjoy it, watching it in the cinema. It has decent music, which is always a plus for movies like this. The costumes are very entertaining. At one point, Wonder Woman uses this like really interesting armor, and I like that part, for example, the way her armor looked. And although I criticize the action, there are still some pretty decent fight scenes overall. Nothing too special, mind you. Even some of the slow motion I forgot to mention did feel a little weak. There you go. But I still did sort of enjoy the fight sequences here and there, mostly. I very much enjoyed the performances, especially, like I said, by Pedro Pascal and by Chris Pine, who do deliver in the performances section, and they are very, very good, and I think they are the best element of this movie, in my opinion. So overall, it's a decent movie, nothing more, nothing less. If you are interested in movies like Wonder Woman and in the DC universe, you can go watch it. I mean, the cinema was pretty much empty anyway, so it's not like there's a risk of COVID. So I think it's worth going to watch it if you're interested in these kinds of movies. Rating-wise, I'm going to rate this movie a 3 out of 5. I think it was a fun movie. I'm glad I went to watch it, but a lot of problems. So if any of these problems are going to give you an issue watching this movie, don't watch it in the cinema. Wait for it to come out on streaming. It will very much be on streaming very soon, I think. Here in Malta, of course. In the USA, it's already out on HBO Max. I think it'll be out tomorrow, probably. That's Wonder Woman 1984. I hope you enjoyed that review, guys. If you did, like I said in the beginning, please don't forget to leave a like on this video and to show your support to my channel. And if you did enjoy that video, why not check out my other reviews on my channel? I have lots of TV series reviews, video game reviews, and movie reviews, which I'm sure you will enjoy. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys next time right here on Adlib Talk.